It's Good Morning Kenya. Today's show is simple. Money is vanishing, basically telling Kenyans privacy is under attack, power is shifting hands, or again, as Uncle Oburu says,
lakini deputy president, usifikiria ya kwamba tunataka kiti yako, tunataka kukufukuza.
12 seconds later.
Hiyo kiti ya deputy president ndio tunalenga sana. Hiyo ndio tunalenga.
20 minutes later.
Hatuwezi kuwa bila power.
And somewhere in between, Kenyans are still trying to fall in love. Welcome to the madness. My name is Willis Raburu, and this is Hold My Mic. Drop the beat!
Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hold my mic. Yeah, yo, hold my mic. Hey, hold my mic. Hold my mic. Hey, hold my mic. Hold my mic.
This week, the internet has a new meme, folks.
We tell them, oh,
And for everything else in between, we must remind the people of Kenya that power belongs to the people, because we have moved from this.
The people may optional,
To this.
hatuwezi kuwa bila power.
Now, more on that later on in the show, so stick around to the end. But first, today we need to talk about something that should make every Kenyan worried, ashamed, and most of all, angry. You know how the government keeps telling us to tighten our belts, to save money, to cut costs and end waste? Well, the joke is on us. Because according to the latest figures from the National Treasury, State House has already blown through its entire recurrent budget for the 2025-2026 financial year, and then some. Now, let me break it down. At the start of the 2025-2026 financial year, the President's office was given 7.7 billion shillings for its recurrent operations. Now, that covers salaries, travel, fuel, car repairs, tea, mandazi, and whatever else the government offices spend their money on. Now, by the end of January of 2026, just 7 months into that financial year, State House had already spent 10.4 billion shillings. Now, that is 2.7 billion shillings more than its entire annual budget. And with 5 months still left to go. And the spending wasn't slow and steady. No, not at all, because where's the fun in that? In January alone, State House dropped 1.3 billion shillings. That's about 42 million shillings per day. Now think about that. Every single day. Imagine they gave your child a weekly allowance of, 700 shillings, but by Tuesday, they've already spent more than double that on snacks and movies. That is what is happening here. And State House isn't the only executive office with a spending problem. Nah. There's more. The office of the Deputy President, also known as NDIYE SIFUNA,
kwenda mpaka Nakuru na Mausame, wachana na hiyo. Sifaya. Sasa ukinipatia mwavuli na wananchi nao, kama mwananchi ananyeshewa, si hata sisi tunyeshewe. Ama mnasemaje?
Has overshot its own budget by about 361 million shillings already. In other words, State House has eaten its entire yearly meal and is asking for more, while the Deputy President's office is at the table eating like the buffet closes in 5 minutes. Now, you might ask, does any of this matter? Funny you should ask that, because this government, this very government, is the same one that vowed to cut down on wasteful spending after the nationwide protests of 2024 and 2025. President William Ruto faced the nation in June 2024 and promised fiscal discipline, austerity, tightening belts, even cutting travel and allowances.
I am directing for immediate further austerity measures to reduce expenditure, starting with the office of the President, the entire presidency, and extending to the entire executive arm of government. Operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove allocations for the confidential fort, reduce travel, hospitality, purchase of motor vehicles, renovations, and other expenditures.
Now look where we are. State House has already spent more than it was supposed to spend all year. And you see it in every travel expense, every delegation hosted, every unexplained 20 million shilling donation here and there. Treasury officials have warned repeatedly that this kind of overspending undermines fiscal planning. It forces unplanned relocation. It eats into development funds, and it squeezes money that should go to counties, hospitals, roads, and schools. In fact, because State House burned through its budget so fast, the government is now preparing a 262.9 billion shillings supplementary budget to plug holes and fund rising costs for the rest of the year, meaning even more overall spending than originally approved. So, here's the math. You tell Kenyans to tighten their belts, but the executive offices keep loosening their purse strings. The result? Less money for essentials, more for routine and unnecessary indulgence. Look, I understand that governments have operational costs. Fuel is expensive, travel is part of leadership, and civilians attend dozens of functions every month. But when the topmost office consumes more than its entire year's budget on tea and travel in less than 8 months, especially after promising to cut waste, then it's not efficiency. That is a car called extravagance with no seatbelt. So let me ask you, dear Kenya, is this fiscal discipline or is it somebody trying to use treasury like the M-Pesa fuliza? Iko mutu anafuliza. Okay, Kenya, this week your timeline didn't just go wild, it went international. We're talking about a Russian man who has become the center of national uproar, not for diplomacy, not for business, but for something that should remind every single person why privacy matters. Over the last few days, videos have emerged showing the foreign man casually approaching Kenyan women in public places, that is like streets, malls, supermarkets, and after a brief hello, the footage moves with them to more private settings. Come with me, let us go. The problem, aside from the awkwardness, is that these videos were reportedly filmed without the women's consent and then shared online, including on paid channels, which is exactly why the Directorate of Criminal Investigations has now, some would argue very late in the day, stepped in. Now, they've launched a major investigation into what they're calling technology-facilitated gender-based violence, privacy violations, and possible criminal offenses under the Kenyan law. DCI says it has already activated special cybercrime and gender violence units to trace digital footprints, gather evidence, and identify the suspect, including working with international law enforcement partners. Now, they're also asking victims and witnesses to come forward and give statements, promising confidentiality and care. The Ministry of Gender, Culture and Children's Services has on its part condemned the whole affair as a grave violation of dignity and privacy protected under our constitution. And it's not just in Kenya. Officials in Ghana have also publicly called for legal action and even deportation of the same Russian man after alleged similar videos emerged there, showing much of the same behavior. Online coverage of his activities suggests that the videos may have been driving traffic and even paid subscriptions, raising serious questions about digital exploitation and profit from intimate content. And yes, social media reactions have been all over the place, from men blaming women to protests demanding the man to be arrested, to broader debates about consent, economics, and the dating culture in Kenya. Now, this isn't just about one foreigner making some questionable content. This touches on real issues. For starters, if someone didn't agree to be filmed, that's a violation. Secondly, intimate moments aren't public property. Intimate is the key word. And finally, selling or sharing what was meant to be personal isn't entertainment, it's exploitation. One man who was probably turned down in Russia now comes to Kenya and all of a sudden he's accepted and is filming people without consent. This mockery is insanity. Come on, man. This is also called free content and it's gaining popularity in so many countries. It is not even country specific. It is spreading across many countries, which is why some are banning certain social media channels. So before anybody rises and tries to turn this into jokes or memes, let's get something straight. There's a reason why photographers, even in town, ask for your permission. Because human dignity doesn't get a consent waived clause just because someone pressed the record button. And if this investigation leads to justice, that's not just good news for Kenya. It is a message to everyone anywhere that privacy remains a right, not a video asset. Moving on, and for this one you might want to grab your matatu seat, lock the doors, and hold on, because the political ride that is the Nairobi County government just took a wild turn. This past Tuesday, President William Ruto and Nairobi Governor Johnson, son of Ruto SAKAJA, signed a 80 billion shilling cooperation pact aimed at fixing Kenya's capital. Outlined in the deal are things like infrastructure, waste, water, roads, lights, basically everything except Nairobi traffic. The official word from State House is that this is a cooperation agreement, not a transfer of powers. In fact, President Ruto said, and I quote, "I have no interest in running Nairobi. My hands are already full, jameni. Muwache kunisumbua."
For the avoidance of doubt, I have no interest in running the city of Nairobi. My hands are full. The governor and his team must run the city of Nairobi.
Now, Governor SAKAJA on his part said this isn't another Nairobi Metropolitan Service, that is NMS. You remember that? It isn't that kind of takeover. You know, the 2020 arrangement that saw devolved county roles temporarily handed to national ministries and which left behind billions in pending bill. But let's pause, because reality out here doesn't quite feel like that polished press address. Listen carefully. On paper, this deal isn't meant to take over Nairobi's constitutional mandate, but in practice, the national government will now be heavily involved in areas that are normally county business. These include roads, bridges, drainage, development, water supply, sewer system, upgrades, solid waste management, street lighting, power transformers, and even security coordination. That's a lot of national government muscle and a lot of money flowing into areas traditionally run by the county. Now ask yourself this question. When the national government plans, funds, coordinates major city services but insists it's not a transfer of functions, is that cooperation or a takeover with a nicer name? Now, a few days before the signing, SAKAJA himself dismissed suggestions of any power shift, saying that handing over functions would betray his mandate from the people of Nairobi. He even told critics to go hug an electric poll if they were hoping for an NMS-style takeover.
The functions bestowed upon the county government of Nairobi by the Constitution will remain county functions. We shall not transfer. We shall not transfer any functions of the county of Nairobi.
Well, just a few days after these very beautiful words, he went on to sign the deal at State House. So, it's no surprise that critics, including Nairobi politicians like Senator Edwin Sifuna and Member of Parliament for Embakasi East Babu Owino, are watching this deal with suspicion. Sifuna called the move a backdoor power grab, and Babu Owino termed it a hostile takeover by President William Ruto.
You do not enter into such agreements to circumvent the Constitution. This is a power grab through the back door. There are legal instruments for you to be able to advance that support, recognizing that Nairobi is unique.
Yesterday we did see the signing and the transfer, which we describe as hostile, of certain key functions of the county government to the national government. This process was illegally done in the first place, and we are being informed that public participation is supposed to be done after the signing of this agreement. This is completely unconstitutional, unlawful, and I don't see the need why the national government should move in a hurry to take the functions and or kill the spirit of devolution within Nairobi County.
All these objections raise one big question, and so again I ask, is this cooperation or a clever way of reshaping who really runs Kenya's capital? However, at least right now, if something doesn't work in Nairobi, the governor can just say, it's the government. All right, now, listen up, folks. If you thought Tinder, Bumble, or all those apps where people swipe left were the only places people can find love, think again, folks. There's a new dating platform in town, and it's not somewhere dark, noisy, or awkwardly sponsored by alcohol. Nope, it's on someone else's running data. Welcome to Strava. The fitness app you thought was just for tracking your slow jog to nowhere might actually be a fast track to romance. Now, for a little background. Strava is the app where millions of people record their runs, their rides, their hikes, and their sweaty achievements, and then share them with other people. It's basically Facebook, but for people who run like they're trying to escape adulthood. Now, some clever minds have noticed that shared sweat leads to shared sparks. Instead of swiping on random profiles with no common ground, why not match with someone who jogs the same routes, someone who rides the bike at your pace, someone whose average heart rate looks suspiciously like your own? That's exactly what Stride, a dating platform built off Strava data, wants to do. You link your Strava account and suddenly your dating profile is powered by your actual running stats, your favorite trails, your pace, your mileage, your workout habits, all there for potential matches. And so no more bios like, I love long walks on the beach, just I'll do a 10 km run at 5:45 a.m. Want to try to do it together? Wink, wink. So it's authentic, it's active, and honestly, it's less awkward than asking, so what's your favorite color on the first date? But people were doing these apps before Stride even existed. Long before there was a specific dating app for runners, couples were already finding each other simply by following each other's runs. Two people started as run buddies. They chatted on the app. Eventually, they met in person, they dated, and they got married. And it makes sense because where else do you meet people who literally train along your favorite route at your pace and with your sunrise jogging group? In fact, a global survey of people using apps like Strava found that making social connections is a major motivator for exercise, pushing people to join run clubs and group workouts where friendships and sometimes more blossom. Gen Zs in particular seem way more interested in real-world connection. Now they're ditching doom scrolling, that time on TikTok, it's now 1 a.m. for movement and live meetups. Strava trend report shows younger users are putting real experience first, and yep, that can mean meeting someone while sweating together. A different sweating together. Now don't get it twisted. Not everybody's love story starts with matching pace. Some run clubs host social events, mixers, and challenges like the Tinder Soulmates Run Club, where running 21 kilometers can win you prizes and maybe a date. So here's a takeaway, my dear beloved Kenya. Some people find love at work, some find it in bars. Apparently now, others find it on routes, runs, and Strava segments. Because at this rate, first dates won't be coffee, there'll be warm-ups to stretch hivi, to stretch pale. And the way to someone's heart is no longer through flowers, it's through shared GPS data. Stretchy, stretchy, stretchy. All right, now, if you thought political drama had taken its final bow for the week, think again, because the Orange Democratic Movement, once a symbol of unity, now looks more like a WhatsApp group where half the people have changed their profile pictures and their opinions. Now, let's start in Mombasa, where this week, acting ODM party leader Oburu Oginga addressed a rally firmly defending the party's decision to remove Senator Edwin Sifuna as Secretary General. Oburu insisted that this was about discipline, not personal grudges, telling supporters that nobody is indispensable, including myself. Oburu clarified that Sifuna wasn't kicked out of ODM entirely. He's simply been relieved of his Secretary General job and replaced by Catherine Omayo in acting capacity.
The party cannot be based on fear. There's nobody who is indispensable, including me. Hata kama mimi nikikosa nidhamu, nitolewe. There's nobody who is bigger than the party, because the party is for the people. It is formed by the people, and the people cannot fear anybody.
He also used the rally as a platform to push the party's official agenda, including continuing engagements around the proposed broad-based government strategy and coalition talks with UDA. Now, in Oburu's version of events, this isn't a meltdown, it's a disciplined house with rules. And to anyone who doesn't like the rules, what do you tell them, Oburu? What do you tell them?
Those who want to pull us backwards, we tell them, oh,
But wait, the party also had a rally in Kitengela, and that one looked like its engines were revving in a completely different direction. Led by Edwin Sifuna Twatafuna himself, alongside MP Babu Ndiojawabu Owino and other supporters like the Linda Mwananchi rally, it drew thousands of Kenyans to Kajiado County, a crowd that many on social media described as energetic, youthful, and perhaps even haunted by the spirit of Raila Odinga's legacy. Supporters chanted and shouted slogans that weren't just about party loyalty. They were about identity, about legacy, and a vision for what ODM used to be under the late Raila Odinga before this internal tug of war began. But that rally didn't end with hot dogs and smiles. It ended in chaos. Police were reported to have fired tear gas canisters into the crowd to disperse it, leading to panic and people fleeing in all directions. And it got tragically serious. A man identified as 28-year-old Vincent Ayomo was reportedly killed during this turmoil. So, here is where we are. At the coast, Oburu's camp is talking discipline, unity, and party rules in harsh tones. And basically saying, you want to talk, stay within the constitution, stay within ODM, ama tutakulinga. Meanwhile, in Kitengela, Sifuna supporters were chanting unity, but their rally turned into a battlefield with tear gas, panic, and now an active police oversight investigation. And here is a political paradox. One faction says that the removal of Sifuna was about discipline and the need to capture power, or as Oburu says it,
tuwezi kuwa bila power, ni lazima tupate power.
And the other faction says the removal was illegitimate and that people are standing up for real party grassroots energy, the kind that once propelled Raila Odinga's mass movement. So, now you have two rallies in two places, two different tones, two different crowds, but one party trying to claim unity. Which is like saying we are all in the same room, we just disagree about which room we are in. And as ODM heads towards the 2027 election season, one thing is certain, this is not unity. This is a competition on the stages, on the streets, and even in court. So who do you think will blink first? Is it TUNATAKA PAWA ama sisi ni Sifuna?
Tuwezi kuwa bila power.
Mimi ndio Sifuna. Mimi ndio Sifuna.
Well, folks, that's the state of the nation today. Now, if you can't trust the budget and you can't trust strangers with cameras and can't trust politicians with cooperation agreements, at the very least, trust your running shoes. Apparently, love lives there now. So, fellow Kenyans, breathe in, breathe out, stretch, because next week is probably going to be worse. My name is Willis Raburu, and this has been Hold My Mic. I'm out. Wabebe!
Hata kama surely. ODM waache tu youth leader tu apumzike. Ona tu vile ameishiwa power. Hey, power. Ameishiwa power. Hey, Oburu yao. Go rest. Hey, you can't be like Baba. No, Hey, wada.
Wananchi wa Mombasa oye! Wajenzi wenzangu oye!